Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and I have something wild to share with you. I finally added some Burger King games to my collection here. I have Pocket Bike Racer, I have Big Bumpin', I couldn't find Sneak King at my local shop. That upsets me greatly. But you want to know what's more wild than Burger King games in 2025? It's potentially Bethesda, who's set to have a very interesting year. Now, I know a lot of the interest on Bethesda really revolves around what's going on with Bethesda Game Studios when it comes to this channel here. We talk about Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Starfield, and we'll be getting into those properties respectively. But a lot of this video is focusing on the Bethesda publishing arm, which I still find very exciting because I know a lot of the excitement has been dampened for Bethesda Game Studios since Starfield, and in particular Shattered Space, but we do have a lot to talk about Bethesda in 2025, as this has been a yearly tradition for a while now, to just sit down, look ahead, see what they're up to, what they're set to release this year, and it's looking to be a lot. What's interesting is a lot of it is currently unannounced, so they got a lot of secrets in store that we're going to get into in today's video. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here and you're into what Bethesda's up to, you already know what to do. Consider subscribing. So let's start off with an easy one, right? Doom the Dark Ages. I think many of us are very excited for this for good reason. This is id. Id has not missed since Doom 2016, which was excellent. Really put that franchise back on the map. Very brutal first-person shooter, but it really was when Eternal arrived that I think things truly kicked off. Like, this is one of the most kinetic first-person shooters that you can play. The executions, the way you regain your armor and your ammo, it's just you're always doing something. Your brain's going a million miles a minute. You really are, as it described it, a race car, versus Doom the Dark Ages, where you are a monster truck just barreling over enemies. You're Captain America with a shotgun. The gore detail looks insane. You can ride a dragon. And it seems like we won't have to wait too long to find out what's going on with Doom the Dark Ages, because just in a few days, this week, we're going to have the developer direct, and we're going to get a release date for it, no doubt. My prediction is May, because that's around the same time that Doom Eternal launched back in 2020. That was in April, because I remember that was a pandemic game. So that was a really good time then. That gives us enough time after all the DLC to ramp up into Doom the Dark Ages, where it would be a nice 5-year development window. And I am just really excited for this one. I think out of everything Bethesda is going to publish this year, this will hands down be the best. But that's not the only Doom that you're going to be getting this year, as it's been spotted over on ESRB that ratings have been submitted for Doom 64. And since there's been a flurry of boomer shooters and older style first-person shooters being re-released, like Quake, some of the older Doom games, again, I think that this is a very obvious thing that'll eventually happen. Maybe with Doom the Dark Ages as sort of like a little teaser drop during the developer direct, like, hey, here you go, you can play a little bit Doom right now, available on Game Pass. Or you wait all the way till QuakeCon and you get it then. It's going to be one of those two in my opinion, but you're going to be getting a lot of Doom this year. I think if I'm Bethesda, I get the old school Doom out before the new Doom, because you kind of want to create that hype, create that excitement, get people just thinking about Doom, playing Doom, engaging with Doom, and then they all drive into the newest Doom. At least that would be, I think, the smartest business practice. But Doom the Dark Ages isn't too far off, and I just can't wait to play. I mean, I really feel like we get so few true first-person shooters like this that focus greatly on their campaign and not on the whole multiplayer aspect of it all. Although, famous last words, because I feel like Doom does have this habit of trying random multiplayer modes. Like, I thought 2016's was great, you know, just this very simple team deathmatch approach, very classic, I would say. But then with Doom Eternal, you know, battle mode, you play as the demons or you play as the Doom Slayer. I just didn't like it. Like, that is the one part of that package, and granted, nowadays with all the updates they got, it's a very small part of the package, but yeah, so I'm not really feeling that. I hope they kind of just stay away from the weird multiplayer. Like they had, you know, for example, like the snap map they added in Doom 2016. I'm like, oh, great. Like, that's a great system to iterate upon. And they just didn't do anything with it in Eternal. So I feel like it has a habit of picking up and putting down these little play sets, and I hope they actually stick with something this time around. Now, I won't talk too long about this because it's come up in like a million videos. You've heard this one before, but yeah, Oblivion Remake is definitely on the calendar for 2025 this year. The angle I'll take, so it's a little bit of a different conversation for those of you who listen to me so often, is that what's most exciting to me right now about Oblivion Remake, I have to be selfish here, is that it will likely depict what's going on with the Fallout 3 remake or remaster. You see, with Bethesda's FTC leak, we not only saw an Oblivion remaster on that list, but also Fallout 3. And I imagine that these are going to be in the same family and made in the same style. So if I see the Oblivion remake and I go, oh, okay, they're really cooking. So that means whatever's happening there, if it's good, is great for Fallout 3, which is one of my top 3 favorite games of all time. But what it also means is that if it doesn't look good, then yeah, it cascades the wrong way and I'll be even more upset than I probably already would have been. Still, this one's been floating around the rumor mill for a while. It was like a remake remaster hybrid. It's going to be in Unreal Engine 5. The leaks have really picked up this year in particular. My prediction is around the Nintendo Direct we'll get some sort of official reveal for Oblivion Remake, and the rumor right now, according to Reddit, is that this is going to be dropping in June. Thanks again to Nate the Hate. Still, that's a big one, and usually we barely see Bethesda Game Studios in a calendar year, but we have to park it on them for a little bit here because while I know many of us are probably not as excited as we once were for it, Starfield is going to be getting more DLC. Remember, when I interviewed Todd Howard, I asked him about Starfield and what's going on with the DLC plans there, and there is at least a year two. You know, he talked about in that interview how he really regretted the team walking away from Fallout 4 too early and that game could have got more post-launch support. This is something I've been saying for years, that them walking away from Fallout 4 was like the craziest thing to me with how popular it was, that game just deserved way more DLC. So they recognized that this time with Starfield, and they committed to a lot of support. And so after Shattered Space, I think what people were hoping for is like, this is the launch pad, and now we get to see really exciting content being added into Starfield. But right now, when you look at things like the Steam player count and whatnot, Starfield isn't really seeing a ton of play. And of course, Todd did confirm in that interview that the updates will slow down in 2025 for Starfield, which is fair. They're already in the first year of full production for Elder Scrolls 6. And that means that yeah, they're not going to have as much attention on Starfield. They'll have like a little splinter squad over there working on it, which means, again, infrequent updates. I can't imagine the expansions that they do for it are going to be super ambitious. So my expectations are fully tempered for year two with Starfield. They have all the room in the world to really surprise me, but I have very low expectations for this one, to tell you the truth. I don't even know when they would squeeze in an announcement for this other than the Xbox Summer Showcase, and even then I feel like Starfield's lost so much steam since its release that I feel that slot in the showcase could be given to something else, and Bethesda can announce it on their own platforms. But there is more Starfield coming this year. And to talk more about BGS, we do have to talk about Elder Scrolls Online, in particular, the developers of that game in ZeniMax Online Studios. They are a fantastic team. They've expanded greatly, and they've been working on this Project Kestrel for a very long time. This is the game that's to follow up Elder Scrolls Online. And like many an MMO that gets long-term dedicated support to it and builds up a player base like ESO, it'll still continue to get that support, but I imagine a lot of the resources are eventually going to be dedicated to this new MMO for ZeniMax Online Studios. Now, the trick with this is that I've always said, and this has never been confirmed before to my understanding, but I've always said that ZeniMax Online Studios made Elder Scrolls Online because Todd Howard knew that it was going to be a while before we got an Elder Scrolls 6, because they were going to go on to make Fallout, and they knew after Fallout they had to make Starfield because, as they famously said, if not then when would they actually make Starfield? So they had to do that, and then Elder Scrolls 6, right? And of course, while I mentioned Fallout, it was 2 Fallout games in a row. So I think Elder Scrolls Online was designed to be this holdover. Maybe not for as long as it should have been, but it kind of worked out because Elder Scrolls Online is really popular, and I think it's really good. But the game is over a decade old now, still going on strong, still getting a lot of annual support. Kudos to that ZeniMax Online team for continuing to do that. That's what makes the game so appealing, is they are on like a very good schedule over there. However, as the player base eventually wanes, it's time to reignite, put them somewhere else. And I think people, of course, they have been ready, but they really are ready for ES6, right? And the reason I bring all of this up is because you bring out ES6 too early, I think you do hurt something like an Elder Scrolls Online to a degree. But to my point, Phil Spencer said that it's 5+ years away. This goes back to 2023, but at the same time, the FTC schedule planned out Elder Scrolls 6 to be 2 years after Starfield. And Elder Scrolls 6 has been in some form of development for a while now. They have at least been working on the tech for the game for a while now, scanning in character models, getting all that pre-production fun stuff out of the way. You're not going to get Elder Scrolls 6 this year. That's not what I'm working toward with this video right now. What I'm working toward is I could see a world where you actually do see Elder Scrolls 6 this year. Not in gameplay, but one thing that Todd Howard has done multiple times in pretty much any recent interview I've heard him in is talk about the regret of showing ES6 too early, that they shouldn't have done it. And since then, it's become a bit of a headline that the age of Skyrim when Elder Scrolls 6 was first revealed is now the same age as the Elder Scrolls 6 reveal itself. Like, it's been that long. It's a crazy stat, right? And Todd has expressed his shame in that. So I could see with now this being the first full year of production for Elder Scrolls 6, like, hey, here's your setting, here's a key faction, like, here's the tone of the game, or here's who you are in this world. I could see a little bit of like a concept trailer, sort of what they did for Starfield, right? Like, let's paint out these corners of this world and kind of build it up a little bit more, because Starfield was very different. I don't know if you get another Fallout 4 again from Bethesda Game Studios, especially at this point in the game with Elder Scrolls 6, because again, I would be leaning in that Fallout 4 direction, but there is a level of shame, if you will, in just how early things were revealed and how much of a mistake they think it is. So on one front, the argument could be Bethesda shows nothing this year because they're like, we already made that mistake. But the other thing could be like, okay, the headlines are starting to build up in a negative way around this game before we've even shown anything off. After Starfield, like, we kind of just need to like remind people we exist and like this is a thing happening, and yes, we hear you, we see you, and here's where the game's going to be set, and pretty much confirming what we probably already know, which is that it's in Hammerfell. I think that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, and I wouldn't be too surprised if we did see that this year. I don't feel like, oh, it's 100% confirmed it's going to happen, but I could see it like 50-50. Like, if it doesn't happen, wouldn't hate it, but if it does happen, I'd be like, this makes sense. I say all of this, I apologize for taking so long to get to the point. Thank you for bearing with me, because I think Project Kestrel finally gets revealed this year. Indeed, this is the blind squirrel finding a nut, if you will. I've guessed about this game for years and years and years, but it feels like after like 8 years of development, like, this is a pretty good time to reveal what you're doing next, right? And, you know, again, you had the first full year of Elder Scrolls 6 production going, where it could be time to sunset the full focus of ESO, especially now that some of the closed down Bethesda studios had staff rolled into ZeniMax Online Studios, so they have additional support, maybe even for ESO, to keep that afloat, continue making content for it, at the same time as focusing on this brand new MMO that I'm very, very curious about, because apparently it's a brand new IP, but I think we finally get that announcement this year. And of course, we're not really looking ahead at Bethesda in any year if we don't talk a bit about Fallout. Fallout is going to be in the conversation a lot this year. Of course, we're going to be talking about 76 because we're getting the playable ghouls this year, but also it's going to be interesting to watch how 76 functions this year, because I gave them a little bit of a pass last year because I could see with how things were set up for 76 and how it unexpectedly blew up after the Fallout TV show that Bethesda was like, okay, wait, they're back. We got something here. Like, let's invest more resources in this. I could see a world where they're planning more for 2025 rather than like, how do we capitalize on this Fallout hype right now in 2024? So they have this built-in player base. The redemption arc is here. The attention is there. People are willing to give it a shot. What do they do this year? I expect to see good things from Fallout 76 here in 2025, but it all starts off with playable ghouls, which will change out how NPCs interact with you, your actual player builds, etc., which will be cool because that will open up other potential player races in a Fallout game, which whenever we speculated about a Fallout MMO, like back in the early 2010s, like we did on this channel, we always said it would be really cool to play as other races. So that is going to be exciting, I think, personally. But of course, the real question is, like, when do you see more Fallout proper? I think, of course, it's Fallout Season 2, but with the fires in LA, which is a lot of where they're filming, it's delayed said filming. So I think you get a trailer this year. My prediction was, this was last year, I predicted it. I was like, you probably get it on the Fallout Day stream that they started last year to sort of set that precedent. I think you bring that Fallout Season 2 trailer over there. But the other question is, in the terms of a game, I think the next thing you do see in this license is Fallout 3 remastered or remake, whatever it may be. And I don't know if you see that this year. I mean, I would lose my mind. Of course I would lose my mind. And when it comes to Obsidian working on a Fallout game, I think they might actually end up starting it this year if that rumor ends up being true, simply because they're releasing Avowed and the Outer Worlds 2 this year, and you have both of your RPG teams ready to go. And I could see a world where the Avowed team starts spinning something up on a conceptual level or on pre-production, just getting things going big time, and then the Outer Worlds team comes in and helps properly with that project. Like, Bethesda can't spin up their own Fallout game with everything else they're working on, especially now with Elder Scrolls 6. Like, I say this with all the sacrifice in my heart because y'all know how I feel about Fallout. I don't want anything taking Bethesda's eyes off the ball when it comes to EES 6. Like, it's just their most important game ever. It really is. Like, as much as I love Fallout, nothing is more important right now than ES6 and will ever be as important as ES6. This is the game you have to absolutely nail. So someone else has to make Fallout. They need a new Fallout game, someone else to make it. And the RPG team that worked on a Fallout game previously has leadership that's expressed many times in the past. They would love to work on a Fallout game, specifically before they retire. That time is coming. I feel like the stars are aligning here where everyone's going to be nice and available to have a Fallout-fueled chat this year. So let's hope. Let's see. But do you see that this year? I don't think so. Do you see rumors of it this year? Maybe. I think that's a good chance. But yeah, pretty interesting 2025 for Bethesda when you lay it all out. Got the Oblivion remake, got Doom the Dark Ages, maybe you see ES6, and a brand new MMO from the team that brought you Elder Scrolls Online. So a lot of big ones to look forward to this year, and I am morbidly curious what Starfield Year 2 looks like, especially after Shattered Space. Like, what is your response to that? Because we all thought, here's the response to Starfield's launch. Like, let's make a hardcore choice and consequence exploration-driven game with Shattered Space, and that didn't really happen. So yeah, I'm just very interested in what Starfield Year 2 looks like. But we'll learn all of that and more this year. Let me know what you're thinking about Bethesda's 2025 down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.